The rain pounded against the windshield of the 18-wheeler as David adjusted his mirrors in the dim cab light. Outside, standing under the flickering sign of an abandoned Indiana Turnpike diner, was the man in the faded green canvas coat. A thick tear ran along the left shoulder, pinned together with 3 copper wire staples. In his right hand, he carried the same rusted thermos wrapped in yellow electrical tape. David had watched this exact man get out of his truck 800 miles away in Pennsylvania just 6 hours earlier. He had not taken a plane. He had not passed David on the highway, yet here he was, reaching for the door handle once again. To understand the chill that ran down David's spine in that parking lot, we have to go back to the start of his shift. David had been driving long-haul freight across the Eastern Corridor for over 20 years. He knew the stretch of Interstate 80 like the back of his hand. He knew which rest stops were safe, which scales were open, and how long it took to haul 40,000 pounds of dry goods across state lines. He was a practical man who did not believe in ghost stories or highway urban legends. But October 14th began with an unusual delay near Scranton, setting off a sequence of events that still haunts him today. It was nearly 11 at night when David pulled into a secluded service plaza near the Pennsylvania border. Fog was rolling thick across the asphalt, dampening the sound of idling diesel engines. Near the edge of the access road, standing completely motionless under a dead lamppost, was a figure holding a piece of cardboard. Normally, David never picked up hitchhikers. Company policy strictly forbade passenger riders, and common sense backed that rule up. But the heavy downpour was turning into freezing sleet, and the man looked drenched to the bone. Feeling a rare pang of sympathy, David hit his brakes. Air hissed through the lines, and he unlocked the passenger door. The stranger climbed inside without speaking. He was dressed in a heavy green canvas jacket with copper wire repair staples on the left shoulder. He carried a silver thermos wrapped in yellow tape, holding it tightly on his lap with dark leather work gloves. When David asked where he was heading, the man spoke in a low, gravelly monotone, asking to be dropped off at an abandoned way station 20 miles down the road. David nodded, pulling back onto the dark highway. What struck David almost immediately was the complete absence of heat or smell. Despite the man being drenched, there was no water vapor rising from his clothes, and no odor of wet wool. The 20 miles passed in heavy silence. The stranger sat perfectly rigid, eyes staring straight ahead into the darkness illuminated by the headlights. When the darkened turnoff for the old way station appeared, the man turned his head slightly. He did not say thank you. He simply reached over, clicked the door latch, and stepped out onto the gravel shoulder before the truck had even come to a complete standstill. David watched in his side mirror as the man walked into the pouring rain without turning back. He disappeared into the black tree line within seconds. Relieved to be alone again, David put his foot on the gas and resumed his long journey west toward Ohio. For the next 6 hours, David drove without stopping. He maintained a steady 65 miles per hour along Interstate 80, crossing the state line into Ohio around 3 in the morning. The rain never let up, drumming relentless water against the glass. David was making incredible time because the nocturnal highway was virtually empty, devoid of construction or traffic jams. He checked his electronic logging device at 4:30, noting he had covered roughly 450 miles since dropping off the quiet stranger. He pushed further west, eager to reach his drop-off point in Illinois before noon. There was no possible way any vehicle could have passed him without him noticing on that empty asphalt. Just past 5:15 in the morning, David crossed into eastern Indiana. The fuel gauge was leaning toward quarter full, so he pulled off onto an unlit exit ramp near Angola. The rest area looked decades old, illuminated only by a single buzzing sodium light. David slowed his rig near the exit lane. Standing right beneath the yellow glare of the light was a figure. David's heart slammed against his ribs as his high beams cut through the fog. The dark green canvas coat, the copper wire staples on the torn left shoulder, the vintage thermos with yellow tape. It was the exact same man, 800 miles and 2 state lines away from where he was dropped off. If this strange encounter is filling you with dread, please hit the like button and subscribe to help us share more terrifying stories. Frozen in terror, David watched as the passenger door handle slowly clicked downward. He had not unlocked it, but the heavy steel doors swung open smoothly anyway. Cold air rushed into the warm cab, bringing with it a smell like damp cellar dirt and burnt copper. The hitchhiker climbed up onto the vinyl seat with the exact same slow, methodical movements. He did not look at David. He pulled the door shut, resting his gloved hands over the yellow-taped thermos. The quiet in the truck was suffocating, thick with an unnatural, heavy pressure. David struggled to find his voice, his throat bone dry. He asked the man how he got ahead of him, how he was standing in Indiana when he stepped out in Pennsylvania just hours ago. The hitchhiker did not turn his head. He spoke in that same flat monotone, stating that distance is only a straight line for those who stay on the surface. He then named a highway number that David had never heard of in 20 years of driving, a road number that did not exist on any map or electronic navigation screen. The passenger seat beneath the man did not shift, and David noticed in his peripheral vision that the stranger did not blink once. David drove in terrified silence for 10 miles until the man raised a gloved hand, pointing toward a dark, overgrown logging trail that branched off the highway. David hit the brakes and brought the semi to a stop. Without a word, the figure pushed open the door and climbed down into the knee-deep fog. As the door slammed shut, David pressed his face against the side window. He expected to see the stranger walking down the muddy trail. Instead, the figure was simply gone. The fog lay undisturbed over the dirt path. There were no footprints in the mud, no rustling branches, and no sound except the idling rhythm of David's diesel engine. When dawn finally broke over the Indiana farmlands, David pulled into a well-lit truck stop to inspect his vehicle. His hands were still shaking as he turned on the overhead cab light. Lying on the passenger floorboard was a small piece of folded paper that had fallen from the stranger's coat. David reached down cautiously and picked it up. It was a paper toll ticket from the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The ink was faded, but the stamped date on the top was clear as day. October 14th, 1974. Exactly 50 years prior to that night. Printed on the bottom of the ticket was a handwritten vehicle license plate number that matched David's current rig. David quit long-haul trucking 2 weeks after that trip. He sold his semi-trailer at a heavy loss and took a daytime warehouse job near his hometown. To this day, he cannot look at a green canvas coat or a silver thermos without feeling a suffocating wave of panic. He researched highway records from 1974 and discovered that a hitchhiker matching that exact description had gone missing along Interstate 80 during a freak ice storm, never to be found. David knows he did not encounter a living passenger that night. He encountered something trapped in a loop, moving between points in space that normal travelers can never see or comprehend. Now, David never drives after sunset, and he strictly avoids interstate bypasses whenever he travels. He knows that out on those lonely blacktop highways, time does not always move in a straight line, and some mysterious hitchhikers are still waiting for a ride that never truly ends. If you have ever encountered something on an empty stretch of road that defied logical explanation, please leave your story in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe for more allegedly true accounts from the dark edges of the highway, and stay safe out there when the sun goes down. Because on a dark highway, you are never as alone as you think.